1 John 4:21, right? So within this passage, the focus is the one who loves God, right, is to love his brothers and his sisters, right? So within the first part of this passage, we're focusing on those who love God, right? And that this is a commandment that those who love God must love his brothers also, love his brothers and his sisters, right? So first off is those who love God. Okay, so you have those who are Christians and they love God, right? Because the two commands, the greatest commands that God has given is to love God, number one, and number two, love others, right? So that's just the basis for what God has been requiring and looking for when it comes to us as believers, right? So when it comes to loving God is the fact of everything that comes along with that, right? So if you're loving God, you are living your life for him in every way, shape, and form according to what he requires, right? And according to his rules and regulations and how he sees fit for you to live your life for him, right? So if you're living your life for God, right, that's number one. Of course, above all, you live life for God and do everything that he tells you to do and not to do, right? And of course, that's how you show that you love God, by just listening to what he tells you to do. Is pretty much simply put in that type of, aspect. Is just God says to do this, so this is what we do. God says don't do that, so we don't do that, right? As creator, as the creator. And then the second, greatest commandment is to love your neighbor, right? To love others. And we show that by our actions and by our words, right? To love others, right? So the different ways in which we love others is how God tells us, and how God tells us that we should love others. And God shows us, through the scriptures, and how we should love each other, right? By how we treat each other, on an everyday basis, and by the things that we say to each other. Everything should be in love, right? No matter how that may look like, from situation to situation, from person to person, everything should always be done in love, right? So if you're a Christian, you're a believer, and you love God, which is always first, then you should always love others, right? You should always love others. So those are the two main things that are the focus and will always be the focus. Love God, and you love others. And the scriptures will lay out what does love look like, or what is summarized in love, and give you different examples all throughout the scriptures, and what that love is, right? And things that, when it comes to things that we should say and what we should do, right? So I hope that helps.